Chapter 17. Concrete Cage. The flashing lights reached him before the officers did. Blue and red strobes bounced off brick and glass, turning the street into something artificial and unreal. Mike stood beneath the fire escape where the leopard lay sedated above, breathing slowly through the burn in his lungs. His hands were still trembling, though he kept them steady on the rifle. 2 additional patrol cars rolled in, followed by a heavier SUV unit. Doors opened in sequence. Boots hit pavement, radios crackled. This wasn't a panicked response anymore. This was coordination. An officer approached him carefully, weapon lowered but not holstered. He was older than the first responding pair, mid-40s, tired eyes, steady posture. "You staff?" the man asked. "Mike Anders, night guard, and I have my training in handling the animals," Mike replied. His voice sounded rough even to himself. The officer nodded once. "Sergeant Ruiz." Ruiz's gaze moved up toward the balcony where the leopard lay slumped against the metal railing. That one alive. Sedated, dosage calculated for body weight. It should be under for about 40 minutes, maybe less, depending on stress levels. Ruiz studied him for a second longer. "You're the only one out here from the zoo." "Right now, yes." "That's insane." Mike almost laughed, but it came out as a tired exhale instead. "You're not wrong." Behind them, 2 officers were already stringing yellow tape across the street. Another stood near the unconscious bear down the block, keeping curious onlookers from stepping outside their buildings. Ruiz glanced in the direction of the museum. "We've got reports of a lion and a tiger down. That was you?" "Yes. And how many more are we talking about?" Mike didn't answer immediately. He ran through the inventory in his head, the one he wished he didn't know so well. 2 lions total, 1 accounted for. 2 tigers, 1 confirmed here, the other unlocated, grizzly sedated. A bull elephant is heading toward the river. Multiple hyenas are roaming. Wolves, 1 down, pack dispersed. Leopards, 1 sedated, possibly another loose. Primates everywhere. Reptiles unknown, smaller carnivores unknown. Ruiz stared at him. "Frackin'." "Yeah." A younger officer approached, face pale. "Sergeant, dispatch says there's something big near the East River walkway. People reporting a moving wall." Mike didn't need clarification. "The elephant," he said quietly. Ruiz rubbed a hand over his mouth. "You got anything that drops that thing?" "Not alone. Not safely. I'd need a heavier tranquilizer volume and a capture team with stabilization equipment. You sedate an animal that size wrong, it stops breathing before anyone can reach it." Ruiz nodded slowly. "Okay, so we don't escalate the elephant." "Correct." Another crash echoed faintly from a few blocks away, not close enough to identify. Ruiz stepped closer to Mike, lowering his voice slightly. "You look like hell. Been out since before sunset." "Why didn't you call for backup sooner?" Mike met his eyes. "I didn't know the system was overridden until the gates were already open and animals were already moving, and my radio is busted, got wet." Ruiz studied him for signs of defensiveness. There weren't any, just exhaustion. "You armed with anything besides the tranq rifle?" "No." "Good." Ruiz finally holstered his weapon fully. "All right, here's what we're doing. We establish perimeters, lock down major intersections, clear civilians inside buildings. You prioritize apex predators within those zones." Mike nodded. Structure finally. "Communication?" Mike asked. Ruiz gestured to one of the subs. "Mobile commands 2 minutes out. We'll get you a working channel. You ride with us from here, no more solo." Mike hesitated. Working alone had been terrifying but controlled, predictable. Adding more people meant more variables. Ruiz seemed to read that. "You don't trust us not to shoot something?" Mike didn't answer. Ruiz gave a faint, humorless smile. "Fair." He turned and called out to his officers. "Non-lethal priority unless immediate civilian threat. Confirm before firing." The words carried weight. Mike felt something loosen in his chest, just a fraction. They walked together toward the sedated bear first. Up close, under proper lighting, the size of the animal felt even more staggering. Its flank rose and fell steadily. Saliva pooled slightly at the corner of its mouth. A tranquilized predator looked less terrifying, more vulnerable. One officer swallowed audibly. "That thing came through the store window." "Yes," Mike said. "Frackin'." A utility truck rolled up behind them, animal control from another borough, pulled off unrelated duty. 2 technicians stepped out, wide-eyed but composed. "You sedated?" one asked. "Yes, approximately 15 minutes ago. Monitor respiration." "Don't roll him fully onto his side. Airway needs to stay clear." They nodded and began unloading equipment. Mike watched them work, resisting the urge to micromanage. He was used to zoo protocol, clean enclosures, planned procedures. This was asphalt and broken glass. Ruiz's radio crackled. "Sergeant, we've got visual on the lion near 3rd and Madison, still down." "Copy." Another voice cut in, more strained. "Hyenas spotted entering a parking structure on 5th. Mike stiffened. "Frackin'." "That's a problem," he said. Ruiz turned toward him. "Why?" "They corner. Tight spaces favor them. If civilians are hiding in cars," he didn't finish. Ruiz nodded once. "All right, that's next." He studied Mike carefully. "You good to move?" Mike flexed his fingers around the rifle grip. They were stiff. He was beyond tired, but adrenaline still carried him. "I'm good." Ruiz didn't look convinced, but he didn't argue. They climbed into the SUV together, Mike in the passenger seat, rifle angled carefully downward. For the first time that night, he wasn't walking alone through open streets. As they drove toward the parking structure, the city passed in flashing reflections. Broken storefronts, abandoned taxis, apartment windows were dark where people had wisely shut themselves in. Ruiz spoke without looking at him. "You got family out here tonight?" Mike hesitated. "Friends, maybe more someday." Ruiz nodded slightly. "Then we keep this contained." It wasn't reassurance. It was a shared burden. They pulled into the entrance of the parking garage slowly. The concrete structure swallowed light. The interior echoed with distant, uneven sounds. Not engines, not footsteps, something softer. Mike raised a hand. "Kill the sirens." The sub's lights went dark except for the low beams. They stepped out carefully. Concrete amplified everything. A single scuff of a boot traveled upward in spirals. Mike listened. There. A low, breathy chitter. Hyenas. At least 2, maybe more. Ruiz signaled his officers to hold positions near the entrance ramp. "You call the shots," he told Mike quietly. Mike swallowed and adjusted his rifle. No backup sedation if he miscalculated. He stepped into the dim first level of the garage. Somewhere deeper inside, a car alarm began to blink weakly. The first thing Mike heard wasn't the screaming, it was the concrete. A deep, grinding tremor rolled through the soles of his boots. The officers heard it too. Every head turned toward the entrance ramp of the parking structure across the street from the zoo. The screaming came a second later. Not one voice. Dozens. "Frackin'," one of the officers breathed. The garage lights flickered in the humid night air. The entrance arm had been smashed flat. A sedan sat sideways halfway up the ramp, hazard lights blinking uselessly, and then it came again. That sound, a heavy, explosive huff. Mike didn't wait. "Rhino," he said, already moving. "White, male, and frackin' big." The lieutenant stared at him. "You're sure?" Mike gave him a look. The lieutenant didn't argue. "SWAT with tranks only," the lieutenant barked into his radio. "Repeat, wildlife engagement, lethal only if civilian life is immediately compromised." They moved together toward the garage entrance. Inside was chaos. Cars abandoned at angles, doors hanging open. A minivan with both rear doors flung wide, a child's seat still inside. A woman was screaming from somewhere on the second level. "Help US!" Another bang, metal folding. They climbed the ramp slowly, weapons raised, not rifles, not tonight. Long-barreled tranquilizer launchers and a couple of less lethal shotguns. Animal control was there too, 3 men in green jackets looking like they'd been thrown into a war zone with fishing nets. One of them muttered, "This isn't how this works." Another officer snapped. "You got a better idea." Then they saw it. Second level, under the fluorescent lights. The Rhino stood broadside between 2 crushed SUVs. It looked even bigger in the concrete cage of the garage. Dust coated its hide. Its horn was streaked with paint from a car door it had already tested. Steam rolled from its nostrils in short, furious bursts. There were people still inside vehicles. Mike could see them. A man frozen behind the wheel of a hatchback. A teenage girl curled in the backseat of a sedan. 2 construction workers crouched behind a pickup truck, whispering frantically. "Don't run," Mike said quietly. No one was talking to him. He was talking to the civilians, but he wasn't close enough. The Rhino swung its head. A van door creaked. Somebody inside started sobbing loudly. The Rhino reacted instantly. It charged. Concrete shook. It slammed into the side of the van. Metal shrieked. Glass exploded inward. The vehicle tipped onto 2 wheels before crashing back down. "Trank, trank," someone shouted. 3 darts were fired. 2 missed. One struck high on the shoulder and bounced off the thick hide without seating properly. "Too shallow," animal control yelled. "You need muscle." The rhino turned again, more agitated now, pain making it unpredictable. Mike stepped forward. "Hold," he said sharply. An officer grabbed his vest. "Are you insane?" Mike ignored him. He knew this animal, or at least he knew the type. Bull, displaced, confused, terrified, and now trapped. The rhino stomped once, a warning, its ears twitched. Mike kept his body square but loose. Not squared like a challenge, just steady. "Easy," he murmured. The SWAT team stared at him like he'd lost his mind. The rhino's head tilted slightly. It wasn't calming, it was calculating. Behind it, the teenage girl in the sedan tried to crawl out the opposite door. The car alarm went off, the rhino spun, charged again. Mike moved before thinking. He fired. This time he aimed lower, behind the shoulder, forward of the rear leg where the muscle was thickest. The dart hit, seated deep. The rhino bellowed and pivoted violently, slamming its flank against a pillar. Concrete cracked. "Second dart," Mike shouted. Another officer fired, hit. The bull staggered once, then charged blindly forward, clipping a parked car and sending it skidding. Officers scattered. Someone fell. The rhino stopped in the center of the level, breathing hard. 5 seconds. 10. Its legs trembled. "Come on," animal control whispered. The bull swayed. Then slowly, impossibly slowly, it folded. Knees first, then shoulder. Then the massive head hit the concrete with a thunderous finality. Silence, except for crying. Mike didn't lower his launcher right away. "Clock it," he said. "We've got maybe 12 minutes before respiratory dips if the dosage stacks wrong. We need straps, a flatbed, and a reinforced trailer. Now." Animal control stared at the animal. One of them muttered, "How did it even get out?" Mike didn't answer. He looked around the garage instead. Every gate in the zoo had been electronically locked, until it wasn't. Until someone with money and boredom decided consequences were optional. A police officer approached him slowly. "You're the guard at the zoo?" "Yeah. You know how many are out?" Mike didn't look at him. "More than you want to hear." Below them, sirens multiplied across the city. The lieutenant's radio crackled. "Confirmed sightings, 2 large cats near Riverside, bear reported near the rail yard, repeat, multiple species lose." The officer beside Mike swore under his breath. Mike looked down at the unconscious rhino. "Sedation team stays with him," he said. "You don't leave him alone. If he wakes up in here, this whole structure comes down." He finally let out a slow breath. Claire and Liam were somewhere in the subway tunnels. Bryce was dead. The zoo was empty, and the city was now an open exhibit. Mike looked at the officers. "Where are the cats?" The lieutenant met his eyes. "Downtown." Mike nodded once. "Then let's move."